most valuable thing in AI right now actually is not code. It's not even the most expensive NVIDIA AI chips, and certainly not a computer science degree. However, something you probably already have, while most experienced AI engineers would have no idea that even exists. There is one thing that a lawyer, a cardiologist, and a road technician from Uganda have in common. None of them have a software background. However, all of them build a working AI product that is so well received in under a week. If they can do it, so can you. And I mean that literally, because the one thing that made all three of them win is the exact same thing that you're probably sitting on top right here, right now. You just don't know about it yet. Let's rewind, start with last week. Anthropic, the company behind Claude and Claude Code, ran a competition, an AI hackathon. They wanted to see what people could build with their most powerful, the latest AI model in just 1 week. There were 13,000 people applied. However, there was only 500 who made it. Most of them were developers, AI engineers, people who'd spent years just writing code and building softwares. Always like that, it's been some kind of unwritten rules in any hackathon. If you can't code, you probably don't belong there. And for a very long time, even a decade, that rule made sense. However, it changes entirely in 2026. Today's large language model can remove majority of the technical barriers. Now, a person with the sharpest idea has the exact same starting line as someone who's been building software for the last 10 years, if no more. Now, let's start with our first winner. Mike Brown. He is an attorney in California, not a software developer, not a startup founder, a lawyer. His friend is a contractor. He builds backyard cottages and garage conversions, basically the kind of small homes designed to help East California's housing crisis. Every time when this friend of his submits a permit application for a client, it comes back rejected. Not because the plans are wrong. Maybe there's one code citation is slightly off, or the local rules overrides the state rule in a way that nobody ever documented clearly. And then he fixes it, resubmits, gets rejected once again. Every time it's been something entirely different. Months goes by. Families who were supposed to move into those small homes were still waiting. Everything is stuck in the same bureaucratic loop, and it keeps happening, client after client. In San Francisco alone, the median number in getting a building approval is more than 600 days, and the permit fees can add up to $74,000 per unit. That's really something. Half of those projects were at risk of losing their financing even before the first wall goes up. So Mike built Crossbeam. He started this demo by clarifying the problem that he's solving.
Everyone thinks California has a housing crisis. We don't. We have a permit crisis. Here's how Crossbeam works for an ADU builder like Cameron. He drag and drops the blueprints and the correction letter. 20 minutes later, he has a precise code reference action plan for approval. On top, it's simple. Under the hood, that's where the magic happens.
Corner Trout, a mayor in the region, actually testified it, said,
"So by 2029, I need over 3,000 new homes permitted, including ADUs. Last year, we had under 100. We need software. We need AI that's going to better support this."
So this is exactly what this attorney is trying to solve with the AI tool. He finally has changed this process that used to take weeks, if not months, now will be completed within a lunch break. Yes. Permit office is one of the most unglamorous places on earth. Unless you're in the trench, the kind of industry where real people are trapped in cycles of tedious manual misery, with few VCs funding it, because no AI startups is interviewing permit applicants. Because nobody in AI is looking there, there is no competition. So that is your first pattern. Knowing an unglamorous industry was only one of Mike's edge. To see the next principle at its sharpest, let's meet someone who'll be standing inside the other problem for a decade. Now let's meet Michael, a cardiologist from Brussels. His day job is to physically examine patients' hearts in order to fix them. Every single time, after they've been just told something is wrong with their hearts, the patients feel frightened and confused. And within 15 minutes, before they even reached their car, they've already lost the context. Multiple studies show that patients can only recall about 49% of what their doctor told them without prompting. And of what they do remember, around 15% is either incorrect or incomplete. Michael has watched this happen thousands of times firsthand. He knows which questions patients call back within the next day. He knows which part of the discharge instruction nobody reads. He also knows the gap between what gets said in a clinic and what patients could actually add on at home at 2 a.m. urgently. No product team could have known. You cannot interview your way into 10 years of bedside observation.
I heard about this hackathon. So I packed my stuff and I spun up my agents and I started coding, because on the road is where my best ideas come to life. In a week and a few thousand miles later, I was able to create what I always wanted to do. And here it is, post-visit AI. Alex is 40, and recently he felt like his heart skips a beat, so he went to visit the doctor. He didn't quite understand the diagnosis, but his AI companion explained it to him, as well as the treatment and all the medical terms associated. Every aspect of his visit was well structured, including the recommendations that he wanted to inquire about.
His competitive advantage in this case wasn't a technical skill, but proximity. The best AI product right now aren't being built by the best coder again, rather they're being built by people like this doctor, who have personally watched the same painful and literally the life and death, the kind of gap plays out for years. But there is one last question here that we should ask. What kind of work is actually ready to be transformed? The answer is hiding inside every expert job that at the surface looks impossible to automate. Kayun here is a roads technician in Uganda. His job: drive roads, assess damage, estimate repair cost, and decide where money should go. It's slow and it's physically exhausting, and it can't be scaled. There are far more roads that need assessing than there are technicians to cover the ground. Schools, markets, and clinics wait while the paperwork catch up. Here's his own word.
Infrastructure is expensive. We need to make sure every dollar spent goes directly to a project which will have as big an impact as possible. We don't have enough data and experts to do analysis for all the projects required.
So in this competition, he built an app called Tara. This is when a technician can finally drive on a road with a dash cam. They can then upload the footage in a few hours versus a few weeks in the traditional assessment takes. They can now finally complete a report with service condition by segments, roughness index, repair cost estimation, and an equity assessment, identifying which communities actually would benefit from the fix the most. In his demo, he also tested this app on a real road under construction near Kampala. This is exactly the principle that unlocks everything. As long as you strip away the jargon from every expert job and describe what is actually happening step by step. What is Kayun doing? He looked at the surveys. He compares it to a known standard and then assigns a number based on the guideline. That's pattern recognition and standard information processing. Once you can see a system or a workflow from this lens, you see it everywhere. For example, an insurance adjuster eyeballing a claim, the compliance officer reading a contract against a checklist, and auditor comparing line items to a regulation. Every one of those expert jobs at their core is someone looking at something and compare it with a written down standard. This is exactly what AI does well. Remember that thing I mentioned earlier said that you didn't know you had? Here are 3 questions I drafted that will help you find the gold mine that only you have access to. Is the pain invisible from the outside? If the industry or even a task looks boring, like permits or patient follow-ups, road inspection, insurance claims, that is a fantastic news for you because that is an advantage. Boring means fewer competitors and more desperate users, because people who are stuck in these systems have often been stuck for years. They'll pay anything just to get out of the trap. Are you the users or someone who experienced the problem firsthand? If you already live the problem in your daily job, you have an advantage none of the well-funded teams can buy. You knew exactly which part it hurts. You know what users forgot to tell the researchers. You know the workaround that everyone used but nobody wrote it down. The knowledge is the product. It's this task following the strict rules, comparing and checking. Strip away the jargon and the describing the task step by step. If the honest answer is we look at something and then compare it to a standard, that's basically a plain information processing. That is compressible, exactly the task for AI. Here is one principle that all three questions are pointing at. A lawyer who fixes permits, a cardiologist who watches patients forget, a roads technician who can't cover enough grounds. None of them came from the software or AI industry. None of them had a technical background. However, all of them knew the pain inside out because they live it every day. So, what is the AI opportunity that belongs to you and you only? What about try starting with one most painful, slow, hated process in your day-to-day? I hope you enjoyed this video and this will be the first step to find your next AI gold mine. Now leave a comment below and tell me exactly what is that most painful task you have to face and do on a day-to-day basis. Thanks for watching. See you next time.